Hey everyone, welcome again to More Layers. I'm Seth Mariano.
And I'm Jordan Smith, and it kind of came to my attention that we've actually done 50 episodes of this now. I don't know where the time's gone, but I still very much enjoy doing it, so I look forward to the next 50 or however many we do.
Well, it's debatably not that much considering we've done like multiple month-long off seasons with the Artists Unlimited shows and stuff, so but yeah, it's pretty impressive though.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
A great number.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll keep this going as long as we can. And yeah, why don't we get right into it? We are talking about something that a lot of you are probably aware of at this point. It's been, I imagine, pushed heavily in the advertising. The new animated film, the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Now, have you seen it, Seth?
I have to be fully honest, no.
I mean, hey, that's perfectly fine. There are times where a popular movie comes out and I don't see it for one reason or another. I did go see it myself because, some people asked. And right off the bat, I will say for anyone who hasn't seen the Mario movie yet, if you go into this movie already an established Mario fan, I would definitely say you're going to enjoy it. If you're the average moviegoer or a film critic or someone who doesn't know a lot about Mario, there's a lot that's just going to fly over your head and you're probably not going to enjoy it. It's a very safe movie if you're a Mario fan.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll eventually see it when it comes out on Peacock or whatever. I might give it a shot.
I mean, I would recommend at least one sit through.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it seems to have been well received so far, and I came across an article from a website called Kotaku.com, and I'll put a link to that, and talking about the box office performance of the Super Mario Brothers movie. And I'm going to kind of break down some highlights here. The movie reportedly set a new box office record for an opening weekend, surpassing Frozen 2 by 5%.
Now, when you say opening weekend, are you referring to just animated films?
At least, or maybe in general, I don't, I'm not sure.
Because I know they were making a big deal of how they surpassed Frozen 2 as the biggest animated film. So that's what I'm thinking, but maybe there's more to it than that. But yeah, Frozen 2 is still up there as one of the highest grossing movies of all time. Not the highest. There's still a good handful that have surpassed it, or that it could not surpass. But I think, from what I understand, as an animated film, Mario has surpassed Frozen 2 as the greatest opening weekend of all time.
And it didn't even stop there, apparently. The second weekend, it topped Frozen 2 by 7%. So a little bit more.
Well, yeah, that's still pretty good when you really think about it, because usually, like, the excitement has been building up for a movie for a long time. And then, of course, with that excitement finally peaking, so many people will go see it the first week. And then, now that the hype has kind of died down because it's been released, oftentimes a film's popularity will drop very quickly after that. But just the fact that this movie not only surpassed Frozen 2 in its first weekend, but in its second weekend as well, meaning more people went back to see Mario than they did Frozen, that's really saying something, especially since this wasn't made by Disney.
Right. Yeah, and Disney has, or has in modern day, or at least the past, had a reputation for kind of ruling the industry, like, in terms of box office performances and whatever when it comes to animation. So yeah, it is kind of refreshing.
Very much so. I know when movies like Shrek or Prince of Egypt came out, those were a nice change of pace for a lot of people because those were well-received animated films that also were not made by Disney. But now that Disney has a lot of different companies like Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel, 20th Century Fox, like so many things have the Disney name attached to it now that pretty much anything that isn't a Disney movie, I feel greatly interests people just because it would be a nice change of pace.
Yeah. Yep. So now I guess we can debate for a long time, is bigger better or not? I guess time will tell.
For sure. And it could also depend on your definition of bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking about, like you were saying, how Disney has acquired so many companies into itself, and now they've become like a behemoth upon a behemoth, or an emperor upon emperor at this point.
Oh, for sure. They don't have DreamWorks though, I'm pretty sure. They still work independently. Illumination, obviously, who helped make the Mario movie, they're not tied to Disney, so they can still make their own stuff. But it gets progressively harder over time to not see Disney's name on something.
Well, and at the rate things are going, this movie could maybe equal Frozen 2's performance, arguably, or not, because according to my research, the Mario movie has made at least $724.3 million around the world, which is about half the total of Frozen 2.
Well, keep in mind, it only came out this month. And considering it's already performed better than Frozen 2 did when it first came out in November of 2019, I only know that for personal reasons. If it's already at about the halfway point of what Frozen 2 made, and it's been out for maybe 2-3 weeks, if it keeps this up, it might very well surpass Frozen 2 completely at some point.
Yeah, wait and see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And anyone who's looking for a reason to be optimistic about Mario's performance compared to Frozen 2 might appreciate this fact. Frozen 2 was the third biggest ticket-selling film of its year. And so far this year, Mario ranks at number 1.
Which, again, shows just how... I don't know what the best word to use here is. But if Mario is making more money than Frozen 2 has so far, at the rate it's going, if it's already at a higher rank than Frozen 2 was when it came out, and it already has a higher grade overall, it's looking pretty good for Mario. I wouldn't be surprised if they made at least a couple sequels, considering how long this franchise has been around. And I won't give anything away, but the post-credit scene at the very end definitely sets it up for a sequel.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and keep in mind the box office statistics are pretty much based on hype, based on how much people are willing to see, or how many people are willing to see it or give it a shot. I looked up the CinemaScore grades. A CinemaScore is a sort of group or website or something that I think that calculates data based on audience opinions. And the grade Frozen 2 got was A minus. Mario has a grade of A, which is slightly better than that.
I mean, anything in the A's is definitely a respectable grade. And I mean, the cinema score, I feel like could be a lot like Rotten Tomato scores. Well, they'll start out at a certain number, but maybe over time, as more reviews and such come in, that number or grade in this case can drop a little bit. But it does need to have a good starting point. And considering Mario is already at one of the highest grades you can possibly get, I can't imagine it's going to drop much, if it does at all.
Yeah, maybe down to B at the most, maybe.
Oh, yeah. I can't see it going into C ever.
Yeah. Oh. And according to this article, the Super Mario Brothers movie is projected to surpass $1 billion, which, by any account or standard or whatever, is a big number. I mean, like Titanic grossed $1.8 billion, and there are a few other films that have since surpassed it in that number.
Yeah, well, it's not a ton. Every once in a while, we do get another film that surpasses that $1 billion mark. Like you said, Titanic, which was done by James Cameron. The 2 Avatar films that have come out, also done by James Cameron. Both Avatar films, even the new one, are in the top 3 of the highest grossing movies ever in history. The only one that shares that top 3 with them is Avengers Endgame, which actually did hold the top spot at some point, but then when they re-released the original Avatar film again, it took that top spot back, and now this sequel is at number 3, but at this point, from what I understand, hasn't surpassed Avengers yet. And I honestly have no idea why the Avatar films do so well. I personally have never seen them. What people have told me before is that the visuals are absolutely stunning, but the story isn't necessarily anything special. But yeah, there are a good handful of movies out there that have surpassed that $1 billion mark. I want to say there's at least a dozen or so of them at this point. But of course, some of the more recognizable ones have been ones like Titanic, Avatar, Avengers. In fact, I think Marvel holds a good chunk of those, but I could be wrong.
I think they were like, I think maybe Marvel has had like 5 of the top 10, at least in recent years.
Well, that definitely makes sense, because like Avengers Infinity War and Endgame specifically, they were pretty much the climax to, I want to say, about 11 or 12 years or so of Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. It was all leading up to this. So people were looking to see, how was the big baddie going to be defeated? How was everyone going to be saved? This was built up for over a decade. So people, of course, would be extremely hyped to see these films. So I am not surprised that at least those 2 are there.
Well, I think Mario and Super Mario Brothers movie fans have a lot of reason to be optimistic, because while even when you compare even just $1 billion to the box office profits of Titanic or the Avatars, it's still more or less an elite achievement if they get to $1 billion or a little bit more, because according to what I found, the bottom entry on the 50 highest grossing movies of all time list is just over $1 billion. It's $1.006 billion. $1 billion,
$1.006 billion, or just $1 billion?
Yeah. I meant that. Yeah, $1.006 billion.
I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah. For anyone who cares, it's The Dark Knight specifically.
Well, I know the Dark Knight trilogy is beloved by many, so that doesn't surprise me too much, especially because I know a lot of people liked Christian Bale as Batman. Many people adored Heath Ledger as the Joker. I don't see too many people talking about Batman Begins or The Dark Knight Rises, but The Dark Knight, the second movie in that trilogy, so many people seem to love, and I can't blame them. So I'm not too surprised that it would have hit $1 billion.
Yeah. And apparently, not only that, all the top 10 animated films of all time in terms of box office profit are in the $1 billion range, or at the $1 billion mark or further. So so either way, they're on track, it looks like, to be an elite entry.
I mean, it definitely would seem to be that case, considering how fast it's been growing.
Yeah, so don't give up hope, fans. It could happen. Something like that could.
I would definitely say so.
Yeah. So yeah. And I also reached out to some Facebook fans like before and asked them what they thought of the movie. One said, I haven't seen it. I'm not a big fan of Mario, but the trailer looks good. But, well, I've heard it said, anything can look good in just like 30 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever, but it might do it justice. I don't know. I haven't seen the trailer, I don't think, or the movie, let alone, so I'll just leave it at that.
Well, what I can say is that the first Mario trailer that came out, overall it was good. Many people were instantly hooked by Jack Black's performance as Bowser. But just like the first Sonic trailer, there was one glaring issue that many people had problems with. And in this case, it was Chris Pratt as the voice of Mario. Because, many people were confused when they first announced that he was going to be the one to play him. And then when the trailer came out and we finally heard Mario's voice, it didn't really grab a lot of people. Many people were like, oh, that doesn't sound like Mario at all. It just sounds like Chris Pratt talking. And that was a legitimate complaint a lot of people had. Some people were trying to say, yeah, but could you really listen to the video game Mario's voice for 90 minutes? And it really depends, I guess, on the person. I completely understand it, but yeah, when you make a trailer in general anyway, you don't want to show all the best parts or all the biggest parts, but you want to show just enough to entice people to be more excited to go see it. And hopefully that doesn't backfire on you. But yeah, the trailer overall did look good, showed just enough humor, showed some of the voice actors. And of course, I enjoyed the movie in general, so that's what I got to say about that.
Yeah. Another commenter said, I loved it. Another said, I have not seen it, but I want to.
Fair enough.
And then one said, one comment that confused me just said, I don't know if you saw it, peaches, 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 which I don't get.
I did see that, and I will provide some context on that because I have seen the movie, so I know what they're talking about. So in this movie, one of the plot points is Bowser likes Peach, and he wants to marry her by force if necessary. And partway through, he has a song written by Jack Black, go figure, called Peaches, where he sings about her. And of course, one of the lyrics, he just goes, Peaches, 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 Peaches. So because of that goofy song coming from Bowser, no less, it quickly became one of those viral meme-like things. And now so many people have talked about it. So many people have covered it or have laughed about it. So if people are just saying Peaches over and over again, that's what they're referring to. They're referring to the song that Bowser sings about Peach.
That does actually sound like something Jack Black would do, or something I could expect him to.
Oh yeah, and you even look at the credits and it even says Peaches, wrote by Jack Black. So.
Ah. Yeah. Honestly, when I saw that, I thought about it for a moment, and then my mind went back to, something I thought might be a logical explanation, a possible explanation. That one episode, I don't know if you are familiar with it, in Rugrats, where Angelica faked her leg injury.
See, it's been a really long time since I've watched Rugrats, so I couldn't really say for sure if I have seen that one.
So for context, she fakes the injury, they take her to the hospital, she gets the x-ray, and then for some reason this doctor cannot for the life of him remember the correct last name of the family. And so he's going through the medical files looking for hers, going, Peaches, Peaches. And then pulls out the file and kind of does the diagnosis. So yeah, that came to my mind.
That actually does make sense, especially if he said it more than once. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, but wasn't their last name Pickles?
Yeah, I think that was kind of like the joke. He couldn't get the name straight, probably because it was so similar. I don't know, but yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. All right. One more interesting comment I heard about the Mario movie. A YouTuber I think I've mentioned more than once on this show before, Mr. Coat. I recently listened to his review of the film, and he described it as capturing what it feels like to play the video game, which is the kind of thing I think you probably want to hear, considering what it's derived from, that kind of thing. So that's good to know.
Well, I would definitely say so. I don't know if I would go that far. I'm not necessarily saying I disagree with him completely. But video game movies, for the longest time, had a very, very bad reputation. And one of the things that people would often complain about is that because it's a movie and not a video game, the player, as it were, in this case moviegoer, has no input on what the character does or says. And because of that, people got much less enjoyment out of it, among other reasons. But a lot of times, if they just stay true to the source material, it could still be a very strong film. Like, even the original Mario film way back when, like 30 years ago, I think, it wasn't really well received. Even the actors didn't really like doing it. There was very little to do with anything connected to the source material. None of the characters really looked like their counterparts, aside from maybe Mario and Luigi. But then this movie comes out, and there's so many connections to the games. There's even an entire scene or two where Mario tries to navigate this obstacle course filled with things that you would see in the games. So that was a nice callback. And of course, there's so many callbacks to previous games and possibly other franchises that Nintendo has worked on. See, I don't know if it captures completely what it feels like to play the game, but I would definitely at least say if Mario had a movie, this would be pretty close to what it would look like, I imagine. certainly a lot closer than the last time they tried it.
Yeah. I guess I'm kind of like personally in the middle. I'm like the biggest Mario player. Don't have like the biggest experience. I guess at best it's moderate. I've done Mario Kart, a little Super Mario. I've done like just the other weekend, you and I played a little Mario Party.
Yep.
And yeah, and that was pretty fun. And so I guess I'm kind of in the middle where I'm not the biggest fan, but I'm also not the biggest skeptic. I'm at least, I think as of this moment, open.
You know what? That's completely fair. I 100% respect that.
Yeah. And so, kind of shifting gears a little bit of a curious back and forth question for today is, who are your favorite voiceover actors and announcers? These could be celeb voiceovers, trailer announcers, cartoon actors, and TV and radio announcers, sportscasters, etc.
Yeah, and I thought of a few for this one. As an aspiring voice actor, I got really excited about this topic, especially since I've known or met some of them. But yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing some of mine.
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
Okay, thank you. The first one, I've talked about him multiple times in great length before, but the first one that I thought of was Vic Mignogna. For those that might not know, he's well known for providing the voice for Broly in Dragon Ball up until I think the Broly movie not too long ago. Edward Elric in Full Metal Alchemist, Crow in Ruby, and definitely quite a few others. And he was part of the reason I got interested in voice acting, so that's part of it. He definitely always seemed like he had a lot of fun. And one thing that did interest me was just the fact that there were originally these Broly movies that weren't tied to the Dragon Ball story in any way. It was just its own side thing. And Broly had a whole different backstory, a whole different voice, kinda. And then this new movie comes out that is tied to the story, and there's a whole different backstory, and Broly sounds a lot different. But he's still able to nail the character, even though things are greatly changed. He got across what he was supposed to, and many people just loved that performance for that. And for sure, one of the biggest reasons I thought of Vic Mignogna was because of the day where I met him. He was in our hometown a few years back now. I want to say 2019. And I had the chance to say hello. And he was just a fantastic guy. He was making a lot of laughs. He was smiling. At one point, I showed him a drawing I made of Broly, and he was amazed by it. He was astounded. And he starts to slide it back to me, thinking I was just showing it to him. But when I said it was for him, this celebrity voice actor, asked for my autograph, which blew my mind, and I still signed it and handed it to him, and he took it with him. But a fantastic highlight was when I asked him if he would want to see our production of Shrek with Artists Unlimited, because that was coming up. And he wasn't able to see it because, time and money is a big thing, because he would have to fly back and then go back to where he came from, all in a short span of time, and that might be too much considering all the traveling he already does. But what he did have me do was recite some of my lines, because I played Donkey in my Donkey voice, and he was practically on the floor laughing. And he ultimately did want me to go back to the cast during rehearsal and wish them all luck on his behalf. So just the fact that he spent so much time with me doing other things on top of what I already talked about and wanting to do something for the cast, even though he couldn't physically be there, I just adored him for that.
If I made like a fortune of money, I would probably like to put some of it toward Vic's traveling here to see one of our shows.
If I had some way to reach out to him again, I would probably try to do the same thing if I could.
Yeah.
I don't know how much that would cost, though, so that may be an issue, especially since Artists Unlimited runs on volunteer work and donations already, so who knows how much more we'd need to raise to pull that off. So the next person I thought of is a voice actor by the name of Jason Griffith. There might be a few people who know who he is because he's also done some gaming voices and anime voices. He's even done some live action work. But for those not in the know, he's most well known for providing the voices of both Sonic and Shadow at one point simultaneously, among many other voices. He's got a wide array of them. But I kind of grew up with his voice talent, so I have a little bit of a nostalgia type of thing going on there. But I followed him on his social media. He seems like a wonderful father to his kid, a wonderful husband to his wife. But what's really cool is not too long ago, he sent me a little video message through a website called Cameo. And he was absolutely fantastic. He sent a video that lasted at least 3 minutes. He was very appreciative of the nice things I said to him. He gave me some voice acting tips and really encouraged me to pursue my dream. So I hold him in high regard for that.
Did you see the Cameo video that Andrew had sent for his brother for his engagement that Billy West did?
I think I did see it at some point, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for some of you may know, Billy West is like one of the most prolific voice actors ever. Doug, Futurama, a bunch of stuff. So, yeah, that's pretty cool.
And I think when we did our production of Willy Wonka, Andrew got a video message from the guy who played... No, it wasn't Andrew. It was...
Anthony. Anthony.
It was Anthony, yes. He got a video message from the person who originally played Mike TV in the Gene Wilder version of Willy Wonka. So that was really cool.
Oh yeah. He was talking about that, yeah. And Andrew's another one of our artist cast, good friend of ours, and yeah. So what else you got?
So the next person I thought of was, this might be a more well-known name, Jim Cummings. He has done a ridiculous amount of voices in the past. A lot of Disney fans would probably recognize a good chunk of his voices. I couldn't even begin to list them all because there are a lot. But he's provided his voice for characters like Winnie the Pooh, Tigger. He was Darkwing Duck at one point. He's been known for being the voice of Pete and just so many others. A good way to see just even a good sample of them is to look up this video where he says Darkwing Duck's iconic line, "Let's get dangerous," but he says it in many other characters' voices as well. But what I also found really cool was at one point, he didn't necessarily provide the voice for Scar in The Lion King, like the animated one, But Jeremy Irons, at one point he was doing the song Be Prepared. And after he said the line, "You won't get a sniff without me," I don't know if he lost his voice temporarily or what, but he wasn't able to do the rest of the song at the time. So Jim Cummings took over for the rest of the song. And if people didn't know that, they might not have been able to tell because he sounds so similar. But I will say, if you listen to that song from the animated film, if you listen closely after Scar says, "You won't get a sniff without me," you will definitely hear the slight change in the voice, and you will definitely be able to detect Jim Cummings. But just the fact that he can provide so many different voices, so many different characters, and even sound awfully close to the original voice actor of a character, he just has so much talent.
Well, the Scar and the voice similarity, that reminds me of, there was one, song that was written for Disney's Alice in Wonderland that ended up being deleted from it. That was years later re-recorded by Jim Cummings. And it was a song that they wrote for the Cheshire Cat to sing, who in the movie was voiced by the original voice of Pooh, Sterling Holloway, whom, if you hear him back to back, there's a lot of similarity between those two incarnations. So that's kind of the same thing, I guess.
Yeah, if you go back to some of the original Disney projects, you will hear that Winnie the Pooh, Cheshire Cat, and Kaa the Snake sound almost exactly the same. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
They were all done, I think, originally by the same actor, Holloway.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's by no means a bad thing,
yeah.
But of course, they're very recognizable because they sound a lot alike, probably because they were voiced by the same person.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh, yeah, and I also I'll put Cummings down, and I'll explain why later, but if you've got more, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. This one doesn't list off a specific name,
okay.
But I thought I'd mention any NFL commentators that get really invested or excited with what's happening on the field. And a good example I thought of was what's been known now as the Miami Miracle. And what happened here was this was back when Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski were still on the Patriots. They were facing the Dolphins, and the Dolphins were down by, I think it was 5 points. And they had 7 seconds left on the clock. They pretty much had time for one more play, and they were a good way down the field. They still had a good distance to score a touchdown, and they had to score one if they wanted to win. So they started the play. It looked like it wasn't going well for them. Even the commentators were saying they'll throw it and this will end it after the shovel. Because a shovel is kind of like when you toss the ball to the player next to you. And when they saw that the Dolphins were still on their feet, it's like, oh, wait, no, this won't end it. And as they got closer and closer to the end zone, the commentators got more excited. They got louder. They got crazier. And by the time they scored the touchdown, they were practically screaming with excitement. It's like, I personally love whenever the commentators in the NFL do that, because it shows they're really invested in what's going on. They're not just saying, oh, this player passes to this player, now they're running this far down the field. But it shows that they're passionate about their work, and that's something I really admire.
Yeah, you really get to see what it looks like visually on their faces, but I can picture them. I can imagine their eyes widening, them getting up on their feet and getting real excited, kind of like what you said.
Oh, for sure. And anybody who wants to see this clip in particular, I'm sure if you just go on YouTube and type in Miami Miracle, you'll find it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably on like the NFL's YouTube or something.
for sure.
Yeah.
And then for this next one, I saw that Seth here put somebody on his list from Watch Mojo, and I thought, oh yeah, there are a good chunk of people from Watch Mojo, because my mom and I, we watch their stuff a lot, and a voice that I like listening to a lot, his name is Ashley, and he usually covers stuff from like games or anime or something like that. But honestly, it's just his voice for me for the most part. Like, it's just such a delight to listen to, especially when it's about a subject matter that you're interested in. And just the way he delivers what he's talking about, it keeps me interested. And that's one of the biggest things you gotta have as a voice actor. And I don't know if I can do a good impersonation per se, but he's got like I want to say he's from the UK, maybe British, I'm not entirely sure. But he's got a voice that really sounds like this, and he's really invested in what he's talking about. And I just love it. I love listening to his voice when watching videos where he's talking.
Yeah, fair enough.
So then the next person I thought of is another voice actor that has voiced Sonic, Roger Craig Smith. I brought him up partly because, I'm a big Sonic fan, so of course I thought of him. But also because he's also shown that he can be very versatile in the types of voices he does. Like, of course, he's voiced Sonic, so he's got that really excited sort of teenager type of voice, really getting into the action. But he's also been able to do some serious voices. He's also known for doing Ezio in the Assassin's Creed games. And for Arkham Origins, he even provided the voice for Batman, which really interested me because I had no idea, because I never played the Arkham games myself. But just the fact that he voiced Batman on top of other characters that I already recognized really well, it's like, this is really cool. I really like how he doesn't always have to play this high energetic character, but also something more down to earth, more serious.
Yeah. It's good. Good versatility. Yeah.
Right, so, yeah, versatility for me is definitely an admirable trait for voice acting. Excuse me. The next person I thought of was, I don't know if everybody would recognize him, at least by name, but he is, I think it's pronounced Don LaFontaine.
Yes, I know who that is.
Oh, you do know who he is? Okay.
Mr. In a World, yes.
Yes, very much so. He is known for providing the voice for many movie trailers, many video game trailers, just trailers in general, even for ads for things like Geico or Mega Millions. But you might recognize nowadays that not too many movie trailers have someone in the background just saying what's happening in this film. And part of the reason was that he just did so much of it himself. And unfortunately, he passed back in 2008, I believe. But for those that might not know, like Seth said, he was known for being the In a World guy, because he would be the guy at the beginning of a lot of trailers that would start off by saying, "In a world," or something very similar. So maybe if people don't recognize him by name, they might recognize his voice or what he was known for. And just the fact that he hyped us up for so many movies and games and other advertisements for so many years, it just shows what a powerful legacy he left behind. In fact, I would even give a little bit of a bonus, as it were, to this, because when I first really participated in this voice acting class that I do once a week now, one of the things my professor, coach, whatever you want to call him, really had me do, just for fun, was try to do an off-the-cuff script as if I was doing a trailer. And kind of to pay homage to this guy, I even started by saying, "in a world." So he is very much an inspirational guy. Got us very excited for many of the things we grew up with. So, like, how could you not love this guy? He left behind such a great legacy.
I feel like trailers aren't quite like that anymore these days. Like I go to the movies, I see a bunch of promos for movies, and it's pretty much just clips from the film with a bunch of graphics, titles, texts, and music that they probably threw in that was pre-existing, and that's it. They've got pretty much everything now but the announcer, and so, it's kind of arguably a step down, but
I would definitely agree. Because,
yeah.
like you said, it's usually just clips and audio from the film, captions thrown on the screen at some point. And I feel like many of the things you see written in text in a trailer would be something that the announcer like Don would say. Because he would say something like, "in a world where darkness looms around every corner, a hero will rise up and challenge the darkness." But now you might just see that in text form, and it's not nearly as exciting because you don't hear it, you only see it.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's definitely a step down. Hopefully they can find somebody to kind of bring that type of trailer back. I wouldn't necessarily say try to replace Don, but kind of help people remember what has been lost.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe not necessarily try to copy the style either, but have someone come in, do their thing, and just create the right amount of emotion, the right kind of hype, and really bring that sort of missing fun piece back in.
Right. And then the next person I thought of, I'm surprised I didn't think of this guy immediately, but I thought of Mel Blanc. This guy had the nickname the Man of a Thousand Voices, and rightfully so, because he provided the voice to so many cartoons back in the day that it was hard to find something that somehow didn't involve him. He provided the voice for Barney Rubble in the Flintstones. Practically every single Looney Tune you might be able to think of, especially the more popular ones, he probably provided his voice for at some point. And unfortunately, like Don, he is no longer with us, but he's one of those people that left behind such a huge legacy that he will be remembered for the rest of time. I can pretty much guarantee that, because he did so many characters, a lot of times simultaneously, and it's like, it's hard to go anywhere in older animations without running into him voicing somebody.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, he just has such a wide list of talents. It's pretty much impossible not to have heard his voice at some point. So then I thought of Tara Strong. She's a more, for the lack of a better word, modern voice actor who's done a lot of recent characters. She's known for providing the voice of Raven in Teen Titans. She was the voice of Harley Quinn at one point. She was the voice of a couple of the characters, I think, in My Little Pony. But there's definitely a long list of them in there. I'm pretty sure she was also Batgirl in Batman the Animated Series. I don't know if she did it the whole time, but she definitely did it at least part of the time. And I know this partly because at one point I became a fan of hers and I started to pick up on some of the characters she voiced, being like, oh, I know who that is. But also because when Kevin Conroy, who was known to be the voice of Batman for the longest time, unfortunately passed away, she paid a really nice tribute to him. It's just like, she has that love for the people she works with. She has that love for the characters she voices. And she's interacted with her fans in some fun ways too. Like she, as well as Jim Cummings or some of the other popular voice actors out there, they once met with this YouTuber who used to use this app called Vine, Thomas Sanders. They all came together with him to say some random movie or TV show lines in their characters' voices, and it was just such a nostalgia trip. And the fact that she was involved, she just seemed like she was having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, you could argue that Tara is like the modern female Mel Blanc. She has something like over 100 voice credits on her resume so far.
Oh yeah.
Or I feel like because I've known that she's done so many and how prolific she's been, then I was thinking it was something like 1,000, but I don't know. I don't know. It could be. Don't know.
I'm sure IMDb has the answer to that.
Yeah.
Then the last person I thought of is another popular modern voice actor by the name of Tom Kenny. For those that might not know him by name, he's most well known for being the voice of SpongeBob from beginning to current. But he's also provided the voice for the Ice King in Adventure Time. There's definitely quite a few. He voiced a character called Dr. Two Brains at one point. Those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head, but yeah, I feel like most people would recognize him as the voice of SpongeBob. And considering how long ago now SpongeBob started, we grew up with him. And this is the general we here. We grew up with him voicing this character. And considering he's done so many others since then, like some of the others I've already talked about, it just shows that he can be consistent and also has a wide range in the kind of characters he can do. Some of them may sound similar, but you can still tell that they're entirely separate characters.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. Yeah. I wrote down quite a few. The first one, this may surprise a lot of people, but I actually wrote down Henry Winkler. Henry is probably best known as Fonzie on the sitcom Happy Days, but he also has at least a little bit of announcing experience. He, when he was producing the game show Hollywood Squares, he served as a substitute announcer when the regular guy was unavailable. And I heard some of his voice announcing work on the show, and I had no idea it was him. He was so good. He had such great energy, and I don't know what else to say. He was really good.
Well, a definite sign of a good voice actor is when they disguise their voice so much that you can't even tell it's them. And then when you finally figure it out, it's like, there's no way that's incredible. I had no idea. And considering Henry Winkler is able to do that, that's incredible. Like, I already liked Henry Winkler prior to that because I'd seen him as Fonzie. He even provided the voice to a character that behaves a lot like Fonzie in SpongeBob at one point. But yeah, he has my respect. I can't help but love the guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you, I thought of a couple sportscasters. I thought of two specific ones who have arguably been responsible for or calling some of arguably the greatest moments in sports history. And specifically, I'm talking about Joe Buck and Al Michaels. I'll talk a little bit about each of them. Mm-hmm. So Joe Buck was for a long time the play-by-play commentator for Super Bowls on Fox and World Series. And perhaps, well, there may be a couple ones that made him stand out to me, a couple moments like when he called the end of Super Bowl 51 when the Pats won in overtime, or when the Chicago Cubs won the World Series in 2016. I mean, his energetic, emotional delivery is like so well timed and so audibly excited that it feels like almost like something out of a classic sports movie or something. He's just got that clear emotional investment, kind of like what you talked about earlier, that is good. When you hear it with the crowd cheering or whatever, which is, I guess, what usually happens, it makes it feel so electrifying, you know?
Oh, I absolutely do. It's kind of like what I was saying earlier. If they're actually invested in what they're talking about, it can make even the most basic thing seem completely unbelievable, just something really exciting. So when guys like this are able to pull that off, like, how could you not enjoy what you're watching knowing that they're also getting passionate and excited about it?
Yeah. It's like guys like him have a way of really capturing what the fans must be feeling in the moment. Like, got people in the stands, people watching at home. I'm like if someone can do that, can really capture the excitement of the fans and the significance of the moment, mm-hmm. With their delivery, with their commentary, I think they've done a really great job.
Absolutely, I completely agree.
Yeah. Pretty much for the same kind of reason, I put down Al Michaels, whom was some of you may know was the longtime play-by-play guy for Monday Night Football, and went on to do the same for a number of years on NBC for Sunday Night Football. He also called Super Bowls and events in other sports. He famously did the play-by-play for the Miracle on Ice at the Lake Placid Olympics. You may remember him for saying, "Do you believe in miracles?" Yes!
That was him? I had no idea.
Yeah. And so, yeah, for the same reason I put him.
I mean, if he was the commentator for one of the biggest miracles, if you want to call it that, in hockey, yeah, you can definitely tell he's invested in what he's doing.
Yeah. 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 And then I also put down, you mentioned earlier someone from WatchMojo.com, and I put down the first WatchMojo narrator I ever heard. Her name is Rebecca Brayton, and she's probably the one I recognize the easiest because she's probably the one that I've heard most times.
Sure.
And pretty much I put her down because I feel like if you're going to read a script professionally for a voiceover, you should have an understanding of what you're talking about and kind of have an idea of the significance of it. And I can tell from her delivery, she's got a clear enough understanding of what she's talking about, and has got a very expressive approach, expressive delivery she's enthusiastic, humorous, and whatever, in all the right places, and I could listen to her a bunch of times.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. Like I was mentioning earlier, my mom and I, we watch a lot of Watch Mojo or Miss Mojo. And I would definitely say Rebecca was probably the most common voice we would hear, because I think she more so covered the general topics, whereas people like Ashley would cover very specific ones. But yeah, I definitely know who Rebecca is. I can even kind of hear her voice in my head. It's like she does it a lot, so of course I would think she'd be good at it, and she definitely is.
Yeah. And all the other ones that I put down are pretty much, I think, primarily known for voiceovers for animation. One of them being Jessica DeChico, who is one of the lead actresses on Nickelodeon's The Loud House, and plays actually two of the lead girls. And they're actually like polar opposites of each other pretty much. You've got the goth Lucy and the upbeat athletic Lynn Loud. And the way some episode scenes are set up, sometimes those two characters will be interacting with each other in the same scene. So she'll have to kind of play off of herself sometimes and kind of bounce back and forth. And whatever it is she can adapt to it.
That's one thing I always admired about some voice actors, is if they're voicing multiple characters in the same project, especially if they're in the same scene together. If you can do both and still do enough to discern one character from another, that shows some incredible skill, because that is not always easy to do. So considering she is among that group that can do it, I very much admire her for that, and I'm hoping I can do the same thing one day.
Yeah. When watching like the first few episodes or so that I saw of the show, it didn't really register with me that they were voiced by the same person. I didn't really, maybe it was because I was just so invested in what was going on visually on the screen or whatever, but if she can keep me from thinking, oh, they're the same actor, then I guess they've done their job.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I also put down another Loud House actress, Catherine Tabor. She does the voice for Lori Loud and is and on the Clone Wars, she was the voice for Padme, which I didn't see, but I knew about. And she's also done some work for commercials, and she's just able to do a variety of maybe not exactly voices necessarily, but a variety of tones. She can go into like good, loud, angry performances and nice, comforting or upbeat, humorous, and down to earth ones also. Well, she does them all equally well.
Yeah, I haven't seen too much of her work, at least not that I'm aware of, but I have seen a good chunk of Clone Wars. Not the entire series, for one reason or another yet. So I have heard her as Padme. And I will say, if a younger version of me were to be watching that show and I hear her talking, I would have assumed it was just the original actress who portrayed her in the live action movies. Like nowadays, I might be able to tell the difference a little bit, but she still sounds awfully close to Natalie Portman. So I gotta give her points for that as well.
Yeah. Let's take it. I put down a couple of other Loud House actresses, including Christina Puccelli, voice of Luann Loud, and has also uh, done a number of commercials, and she's really good at doing both normal, gentle adult voices and more energetic, childlike sounding voices. I feel like that's a good variety right there. Just that.
Oh, for sure. And I always tell people that someone will have my respect, generally speaking, if they have a goofy side to them, but they also recognize when to be serious. And if a voice actor can do both of those things, like they can be goofy and or energetic, but they can also be more down to earth and serious, they have my respect as not only a person but a voice actor.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And the other one, Grey Griffin, who also has also been doing two leads on the Loud House, and specifically the two twin sisters, the handy woman Lana and the pageant princess Lola, who they're pretty much kind of like the Phil and Lil of the Loud House universe. They're twin sisters, like polar opposite personalities, and she can disappear into both of them, and play off of herself for the same scene, like Jessica DeChico, when it really calls for it.
And one thing I will say, because you brought attention to a good chunk of the characters from this show, is that especially when there are so many characters that are supposed to be in one family, because I haven't seen much of the Loud House, but I know there's a lot of people in just this one family. The challenge is that you don't necessarily need to make them sound like they're related to each other, but you still have to make it clear that these are in fact, family members. And while it's made a little easier by the fact that some of them are voiced by the same person, it's still a challenge to pull that off. So considering so many people are able to bring this group of cartoon characters together and make them seem like they're actually related, it's difficult to do, but if they can pull that off, that's a true sign of skill.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah. And the next one on my list might be more based on nostalgia, but really I think more than anything it's based on kind of like we've talked about versatility.
Sure.
A guy by the name of Brian Cummings, who a longtime announcer and cartoon voice actor. I know him best personally because having grown up with a bunch of Disney home videos, hearing his voice to all those bumpers of coming soon to own on video and that kind of thing. And I'm like, he did that for a number of years. And so, some of you younger people might not really understand this, but really, for people like us who grew up in like 90s and 2000s, the previews and bumpers before the actual movie were kind of a part of the experience in themselves. So, in a way, his voice was a part of my childhood just from that.
Oh yeah, I would definitely say the same thing because I grew up listening to that voice too. Do you know if he's related to Jim Cummings or is it just purely coincidental?
I think my first guess was it could be an entirely different family, but I don't know for sure.
All right, I wasn't sure either, so I figured I'd ask. I'll definitely look it up afterwards though, because that really does intrigue me. That these two people have the same last name, they're kind of in the same profession, and they both did a lot of Disney stuff. So
yeah, but what really landed him on the list was, uh, oh, well, I had realized not until just about a few years back, even though I had seen this movie multiple times throughout my life, Annabelle's Wish, which was a less than hour long animated film that he had a small role in. And he actually did the voice for the rooster. And it was like, I guess you could say, a far cry from the voice we're used to hearing in like his announcing work, like on the Disney videos and stuff. But it was like this really, a really high energy kind of old school MC voice. And it didn't hit me at all for several years that is the same guy, Brian Cummings.
That's the beauty of voice actors, is that sometimes you can go years listening to the same thing, not picking up on the fact that it's somebody you would recognize. And then one day you might be listening to it again casually or looking up different filmographies, I think is the word I'm looking for, of different actors and voice actors. And then you see that the person who did role A also did role B. And until that point, you might have not made the connection. But once you do make the connection and then you play it back again, like, I can totally hear it. How did I not register that until now?
Yeah. Yeah. It was something I didn't pick up on for a while, and now, if I listen to it in my head, I'm like, that's kind of obvious now.
See, now, yeah, once you've made the connection, but not always will you realize it until then.
Yeah. And then I thought of the voice actress Kat Susi, who did the titular voice in Annabelle's Wish, was the voice for Phil and Lil on Rugrats. I think primarily because of her performances as Phil and Lil, the two twin siblings who were pretty much polar opposite personalities, and each given their own unique voice or tone that set them apart. So again, for that versatility reason, I put her down.
Yeah, versatility, as we've been saying, is a big plus when it comes to a good voice actor, at least in our eyes. And especially when you play characters that are twins of each other or just like very closely connected in some way. If they're being voiced by the same person, but they can still separate them enough to be their own individual characters, that really does take a lot of skill. I don't know if we can really put enough emphasis on that.
Yeah, probably not. Let's see. And then I had one of the ones you had on your list, Jim Cummings, again, voice of Darkwing Duck, Winnie the Pooh, Tigger for a long time. And yeah. But I think the thing that really made me decide to put him there was when I found out that he actually did the voice for a teaser trailer for the Rugrats movie. The teaser trailer that, if you grew up in our generation, you probably saw it at the beginning of a lot of Paramount cassettes. You know, the one that starts with the sort of trucking shot around the TV, and then the TV explodes, and then you see the Rugrats on the Reptar mobile. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
I feel like I have seen it before based on based on how you are describing it, but I'm still having a little bit of trouble picturing it. I'm sure though that if I went back and found one of my old Paramount VHSs or something and found a way to play it, or heck, even if I just looked it up on YouTube, I might be able to play it back and kind of clear that image in my head and then hear Jim Cummings.
Yeah. Yeah. That is pretty cool. That actually was Jim Cummings that actually did that. Something, again, I never picked up on.
something we didn't pick up on right away, something we grew up with, so a lot of nostalgia there. He has just done so much with things that we got attached to as kids. So he really made part of our childhood really special.
Yeah. And then next I have a guy who probably best known for doing voiceover work either at Disney or owned by Disney now. Paul Frees. He was the disembodied voiceover guy for the Disney short Donald and Magic Land. He also was the villain, the Burgermeister, in the animated special Santa Claus is Coming to Town. But in that same special, he also voiced the high-voiced elves.
Wait, the same guy who did the nasty Burgermeister Meisterburger was also the elves?
Yeah. I just looked that up.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
I mean, maybe because of the way they edited the elves' voices, I was never able to tell. Maybe if I go back and listen to them again, I might be able to pick up on some of the inflections. But yeah, that's actually kind of incredible.
Now, honestly, I can't even hear the similarity. I don't know if they did like a pitch trick with it or something, or I don't know. But if it is accurate, that's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, it could be something similar to what they do for the voices for Alvin and the Chipmunks, where they take their normal voice and pitch it up so that it's a little bit squeakier. So maybe that's what they did with this guy, and I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. Maybe at some point I'll play the voices back to back to see if they maybe not necessarily sound similar, but are delivered in similar fashions. Like the way they say it as opposed to how they sound.
Hey, if they've at least got the tone of delivery, I think that's good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I thought of Clancy Brown, who probably best known for doing the voice for Mr. Krabs on SpongeBob. And actually did a very different role in Annabelle's Wish as the local sheriff, which is something I never picked up on until I researched it, and now I can hear it back and compare it to his everyday voice, which I've heard in behind the scenes featurette stuff. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I'll have to look up their filmography. Excuse me, I cannot talk today. I will definitely have to look up their filmography as well at some point, because I know that name from something specific, but I'm having trouble pinpointing exactly what it is. But I'm definitely going to be doing my research.
And the last one I thought of was someone probably best known for, or working for decades with Disney, Corey Burton, the longtime voice of Ludwig von Drake. He's one of my earliest memories, honestly, of a voice actor performance in general. And he provided that iconic sort of accented voice for Ludwig for so long. And he apparently has done the safety instruction video for the tram at the Magic Kingdom park at Disney World.
Oh.
So yeah, and I never noticed a similarity.
Well, I did go to Disney World about 20 or so years ago now. So it's entirely possible that I heard his voice and I didn't even think about it at the time. But if he really did provide his voice for the tram, then yeah, I might have heard it at one point and just not realized.
Yeah. Yeah. And one extra cool thing about him, he is actually, well, like Jordan and myself, also apparently on the autism spectrum.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Yeah, and he actually, and he's been doing voices for Disney and stuff for decades. So it's just cool that he is, he by definition is like one of the underdogs of society, or part of one of the underdog groups of society, and he's been doing this kind of work for several decades. I think that alone is cool.
You gotta admire him for his skill, for his versatility, and of course, his dedication, and just being part of our childhood growing up.
Yeah. So yeah. So whether he realizes it or not, I'd say he is a hero to so many.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I believe that's all we've got to say for now. Well, thank you all for joining us. Keep up with us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Facebook, YouTube, and Anchor. And keep the comments and questions coming as much as you'd like. And when we're getting ready for the next topic, I'll definitely send out a question so you can answer it, and we can use your responses in the next episode.
Yeah, and we appreciate those who sent in some comments based on the Mario movie, whether or not you had seen it. Very much appreciate it. If you have anything you'd like to add on to today's question regarding Mario movie, or you just want to say something else entirely, any interaction we have with our audience, we absolutely adore, because we love the interaction. We love to hear what people have to say and share our thoughts with them. So if you have anything to say, don't be shy.
Well, thanks everybody again, and we'll see you soon.
So long, everyone.